Okay, few comments. A, one thing you said is a complete lie, because I'm actually studying for my master's for 5 years now. Did not finish it. I have no idea if I'll ever finish it. Don't tell my mother. Thank you. The second comment would be that my voice is about to die, and it's the 5th event today, which is exciting. I love it. So I'm sorry if I'm going to sound like Darth Vader, but I'm doing my best. That's why I have a microphone, and finally I will speak in a soft, feminine voice I never spoke in. So, I want to say that I'm so excited to be here, and thank you so much to Jen and to Judy and to Lisa and to everybody in the room, and to Neil from the Jewish Agency for Israel, and to all of you that I do not know all of your names, but I'm very excited to be here. So, let's talk about dreams, okay? Because yesterday was Martin Luther King Day. I sat in front of the TV screen and cried. I never thought I would cry for Martin Luther King, but I did. And Martin Luther King had a dream, and I want us to talk a little bit about dreams. We'll talk about my dreams. We'll talk about, if you wish, we can talk about your dreams, and about all the rough roads that we need to go in order to achieve our dreams. At the end, I might show a video, but I feel like this is getting so much attention. Don't expect it, okay? We use it at the end, so all eyes on me. Thank you. My name is Michal Barkai Brody, and I was born and raised in what I like to call the periphery of uptown Tel Aviv. Meaning, who has been to Tel Aviv here? Oh my goodness, that's a good crowd, especially you, Rotem. So, I was born and raised really in the good part of Tel Aviv, what they call the good part of Tel Aviv, in a sort of, middle class, maybe a little more. Never thought of myself as a privileged child in any way. And when I turned 18, I did what every nice Jewish girl in Israel does, unless she's a Shinshinit, which is more important, of course. I got drafted to join the Israeli army, as you will very soon. I'm done talking to you two. And I got drafted to the Israeli army. Well, they announced to me, Michal, yes, you're going to be a commander in basic training. How cool is that? Imagining myself standing in front of really hot guys in uniform, bossing them around, telling them what to do, until I get another phone call saying, Michal, you're going to be a commander in basic training for women. I did not stop crying until the end of commander's course, seriously. Why is that? What do they used to tell us about women before Oprah's speech? What do we always hear? That women are what? Weak. Catty. Bitchy. Thank you for being so honest. Drama queens, right? I did not want that drama, as you can see, right? And that was not the story I was looking for. And also, I wanted to have a boyfriend, right? I was 18. And as soon as I got drafted, I immediately became a commander in basic training for young women, only to find out some very, very important things about life. The first one was that I think the most incredible force of nature is the power of women working together for a purpose higher than themselves. You can do that, totally. And the second thing that I found out was that I was such a privileged child without understanding that. You're like, I bet my kids can relate. And I actually found out about it when I started noticing something that was extremely disturbing to me. I started noticing the difference between my friends and my soldiers. So there were my friends, all nice Jewish girls from uptown Tel Aviv, who all of them got the best positions in the army. Meaning they would do what? They would be commanders, they would be officers, pilot instructors. They weren't pilots, we weren't that good, unfortunately. But they would be medics, and they would be social workers and educators, all of that. All of my soldiers, almost all of them, came from a whole different area. They came from what we like to call the socioeconomic periphery of the country. Meaning, they would come from small development town down south in the Negev or up north. They would come from rougher backgrounds, from rougher schools, and they would be immediately assigned to basically use those 2 years of mandatory service to make coffee, sell candy, clean weapons, and drive their commanders around. Now, before you run to attack the IDF, okay, I just want to stop and say, it's not necessarily the IDF's fault, because when we turn 17, we take sort of like SATs, tests, to test where we're going to be assigned in the army. So those tests are standardized, but we don't arrive to those tests in a standardized way, right? I can tell you about my test. I woke up in the morning, my mother told me, Michal, this is the most important test you will ever take in your life. No matter what happens, remember, you're the smartest girl in town. You'll do so great. You're such a leader. You're so amazing. Well, that's my mom. She stopped saying it. You'll hear it later. But, you'll be the best. Right next to me sat another girl from my school. Her name was Sharona, and she came from a very poor home. She studies in the worst class. And when Sharona woke up that morning, her mother wasn't even there to tell her anything because she was working very hard. She wasn't there. And when I arrived, I sat on the chair feeling like Michal the leader. I knew I was an Israeli scout. I knew I did so many things. I was so full of self-confidence. When Sharona sat on the table next to me, what she had in her bag was being stupid Sharona, the one who never succeeds, the one who never does well in tests, the one who never hears how amazing she is. So when Sharona and I took the same tests, we weren't really at the same place. And when Sharona and I went out of the hall where we took those tests, we were on two different paths to two different kind of futures. And it wasn't only our personal qualities, it was something wider than ourselves. And at that point of being 19, already a platoon commander in the Israeli army and an officer, I started asking, why is that? I mean, does it make sense that all the girls who come from rougher backgrounds are less capable, less talented, less passionate than the girls who come from the good and wealthy homes? And the answer was, of course not. But they just know how to play the game. And they just get better cards. And I think that's an international thing. I ask Americans, how many kids from Harlem get to study at Yale? Not so many. Is it because they don't have, they're not smart enough or they're not capable enough? Not necessarily. And I started feeling a fire burning within me, telling me something has to change for young Israeli women who come from the periphery. What do we do when we see one of our girls with a huge fire burning within her? What do we usually tell her? we usually tell her, put that fire down, young lady, or run away from it, or conceal, don't feel, don't let it show. Sorry for my voice, right? We don't usually tell our daughters to use that fire as an engine to make them change the world. We don't do that. And when there is a young woman, or not necessarily a young woman, with a huge fire burning within her, it's a scary thing. She gets to hear that she's very hysterical, that maybe it's that day of the month again, that all those things. We're afraid of we're taught to be afraid of our own powers. And I started asking, how can I change the IDF? Let me tell you something. When you're 19, you better not try to change an army. That was not a good idea, which I learned very fast. And I got out of my service with a huge desire to change the world, a burning fire within me, and a Jewish mother. Therefore, I could only do one thing: go to law school. So there I was, putting my mascara, straightening my hair, buying a new laptop, feeling like Reese Witherspoon in Legally Blonde, and without the chihuahua. I hate chihuahuas, sorry. And 5 years later, I looked at myself in the mirror and I saw an attorney with no light in her eyes. And I said, Michal, where is that fire? Where is that spark? Where is it? It was gone. And I'm going to fast forward because I want to keep time for this interesting stories later, but I just want to say that at a certain point of my life, I kept looking for that fire here and there, and I couldn't find it. And at a certain point, I said, you know what? If I can't change the army, what if I can change the girls? What if I can meet those girls right before they get drafted? What if I can teach them to look at themselves and see how incredible they really are? What if I can open those doors for them that keep being slammed again and again and again and again? Because let me be honest, when I needed help in life, in many cases, my dad made a phone call. What if I can make a phone call for them when their parents are incapable of making those phone calls? What if I can do that? Then their entire lives can change. But how? And then I learned something really interesting. I learned that in Israel, there are amazing kids who take a gap year. That's the last time I'm pointing at you two, okay? So amazing kids who take gap years. They graduate from high school, they take a year off, and then the army recruits them for a meaningful service. So one thing to do is a year of service like Shinshinim. The best ones come here. And the other thing is to take what we call in Hebrew a mechina, a leadership preparatory program. Meaning that those kids get to leave home, live together in dormitory style. They study so many interesting things. They hike all over the country. They lead projects together, and they prepare for the best military service that is possible. Who gets to go on those mechinot? Who gets to go on those leadership programs? Who do you think?
The ones who could pay for it?
Yeah, so if I would want to send one of my soldiers on a program like that, she would have few issues. The first one would be that it costs between $2,500 to $5,000 a year. For us in Israel, that's more than it costs to pay for your master's degree. And that's the last time I'm talking about master's degree. Lucky Israelis, right? And so she wouldn't have the money. And if she would have that kind of money, what would she do with that? She would give it to her parents, to support her parents, because this is what those kids do. And the second reason is that nobody would come look for them in the schools, the roughest schools, the worst classes, in the periphery, nobody would come look for them. And the third reason is that when she would look in herself in the mirror, she wouldn't see a leader there. She wouldn't see a leader there because she had so many doors slammed in her faces, time after time after time. So I started asking, you know what, does it make sense that all the Jewish leaders in the world will be chosen from the best and the brightest schools and the best and the brightest homes? Does it make sense that we leave so many people behind? And the answer was, Michal, we're actually going to start a new mechinot, new programs, new leadership academies for kids who come from the periphery. All of them were meant for one gender. Which one? Of course you all know that, surprisingly. So, why did it make sense for everybody to help the men and not the women? Why?
The men are the breadwinners. They're the ones that make their money for the families. They have to get ahead.
Okay, so first of all, they're leaders. They're natural leaders. When I studied sociology, they told me to watch out from the word natural, okay? So they're natural leaders. They're the one who's going to support their families one day. It's important to push them forward. The second reason is that we need a lot of fighters in the army. We do need a lot of combat fighters, right? And most combat fighters are still men. And the third reason, which is really interesting, and that's an international thing, is that when men are in distress, who do they hurt? They hurt others. But when women are in distress, who do we hurt? You know the answer. We hurt ourselves. So girls in distress would cut themselves, would starve themselves, would act in a sexual behavior that is awful for them. They had a survey, and they found that 90% of the women who took part of it said that they're unhappy with their body image. 90% of the women are unhappy with their body image. Think about it. Think about what it means when you deeply hate yourself, when you deeply believe that you need to be punished. You hurt yourself. Now, who does it make more sense to help financially? Return of investment. People that if you don't support them today, you will put them to prison tomorrow, or people who would hurt themselves and pay for it themselves. Of course, it makes more sense to say, if you're not going to take this child off the streets today, you will put him in prison tomorrow. You will pay more to put him in prison tomorrow. In Israel, we have 20 prisons. Only one of them is an all-female prison. 1 out of 20. That's the ratio. And I said at that point, oh my God, okay. If everybody in the world thinks it's the dumbest idea ever to start the first pre-army academy for women's leadership, targeted for girls who come from the periphery, it could only mean one thing. It could only mean that it's my life mission to make it a reality. And back then I read something Mahatma Gandhi once said, and he said, be the change you want to see in the world. And I started asking, how am I supposed to be the change? I mean, am I supposed to shave my head and walk around with a diaper and march against the British? They left Israel 70 years ago, come on. And I said, you know what? If I believe in women's leadership, I need to really be women's leadership. But how? So the first thing I understood is that you cannot change the world alone. I think that this is something I keep learning from Judy, from Federation. You cannot change the world alone. So I called 4 girlfriends and told them, come on, let's join you on this ride. Let's do this together. And they said, Michal, we're going to follow your lead. What's the business plan? And I said, there is no business plan exactly, but let's just start. And the second thing I did was to quit my job. Well, let me tell you now, I was a real success story. I was 30, single, and unemployed. Imagine my mother. And, okay, so at that point, we decided to just start. What did we need in order to start an all-girls program, like boarding school program? What did we need? Money. How much money? $500,000 to start with. Okay, what else?
Building.
We needed a building. What else?
Girls.
We kind of needed girls. That makes sense. What else? Teachers, staff, curriculum. We needed an NGO. Because you can't really fundraise into your own pockets, even though I have many of them today. Not really legal, and only one prison in Israel. And what do you think we started with? They're like, you're insane, who knows what you started with? And actually, we started with taking my entire life savings. It wasn't that much, but we took all of it and more. I'll just say more. And to put it into gas money. And we just took my tiny little car and started driving all over schools in the periphery of the country, knocking on doors, telling them, hi, please let us talk to your leaders. What do you think happened to those doors? Immediately slammed in our faces, one after the other. And the answer was always, there are no leaders here. When they tell you there are no leaders here, you better start looking for those leaders, because no one's ever looked for them. And I learned something from an American boy who died as an Israeli soldier in the Second Lebanon War, and that boy's name was Michal Levine, may he rest in peace. Michal Levine said, when somebody closes a door in your face, just climb up the window. And boy, did we climb up windows back then. We snuck into schools in partially legal ways. I will not elaborate because there are kids in the room. And literally snuck into schools, and we started talking to girls, not about the army and not about their life trajectories and not about all those huge words. We just started asking them, do you have a dream? What's your dream? And every time we would see a girl with a dream, with a spark in her eyes, we would tell her, you're coming with us, young woman. But where exactly could we take them? By February 2013, we had 22 insane girls who signed into a non-existent pre-army academy for women's leadership that had no place, no NGO, no money, and no idea what exactly we're going to do with them. And at that point, we really needed a miracle, because fundraising for $500,000 was hard, but opening the pre-army academy by August, 6 months from then, was impossible. And that was when the first miracle happened. When I knocked on the doors of the Jewish Agency for Israel, expecting them to be slammed in my face, but they weren't. The doors were opened. And the Jewish Agency said, not only we, the professionals, believe in you, the Jewish people believe in you. And we're going to invest the money of the Jewish people from places you've never been to, from places you may never heard of, in your dreams. Because this is what Jewish people do. They dream big and they believe in each other's dreams. And I'm going to fast forward again and say that in August 2013, we had everything ready. We had the staff, we had a great curricula, we had the best girls, we had all the money we needed, we had the Jewish Agency and the Jewish people behind us. Everything was ready, but the last thing was a place for the girls to live and study in. So we chose, again, be the change, to be in the roughest place we could find, and we found the small development town in the Negev called Ofakim, only 30 minutes away from Beersheba and 30 minutes away from Gaza. And we had this ground in Ofakim, and 3 weeks before the Mechina started, trailers arrived. We bought trailers. I know it's kind of illegal in the States to just put many girls in trailers, but that's what we do in Israel. We call it chalutzim, or pioneers. And we bought trailers for the girls to live in. And I will never forget the minute that I saw the first trailer being lifted up high in the air. And a minute before the trailer was set down, I got a phone call saying, Michal, are you sitting down? And I said, of course not, it's the happiest day of my life. And they said, please do. And I said, what is it? And they said, somebody in the municipality of Ofakim really doesn't want you there. They cancel your permits. When they cancel your permits, it means that if one trailer touches the ground, you can go to prison. It's a criminal offense. Thank you, law school. The next thing that I've noticed was that the contractor ran away and the police was on their way to arrest me. What do? You run. And that's it, you forget about it. What do? You send the trailers back and give up your dream? I just invested 2.5 years and all my life savings in it. You can take an appeal. Yeah, it will take like 8 years. Or you can wait for permits. That would take between 3 to 5 years. Israeli law is very, very organized. What do?
Talk. Stand your ground.
You stay on the ground.
Stand
your ground. Okay, you talk. Okay, so let me tell you, some people invite the press, bring the media, do something. And I always tell them, the next year there was war in Ofakim. And people did not have bomb shelters to run to. And the media did not come. The media did not see those people. The media did not care. And you know what? They say that men are tested by their intentions, women are tested by their actions. I did not have anything to show that I'm capable of doing anything but talking and fundraising for something that does not even exist. So what do? I did the only thing I could do. I told them to take the trailers away. And let me tell you that sitting there on the pavement next to the garbage cans, seeing those trailers disappearing into the Negev's dust was probably one of the worst moments of my life. I held my head in my hands and I said, Michal, what did you do? What did you do? You're such a loser. You convinced everybody to follow you. People put so much money into you. People believed in you. And you let everybody down. What are you going to tell the girls? What are you going to tell the Jewish people that is standing behind you for some reason? What are you going to tell your mother? And I did not know the answer, so just every day I spent all my time trying to figure out for a solution and nothing helped. And every night I sat on the floor, cried like a baby, and spoke to God. That's my thing. That's okay if it's not your thing. But I said, God, you brought me here. You're getting me out of here. And few days and nights like that went by until I got a phone call saying, Michal, are you sitting down? And I said, stop asking me this question. And they said, a woman, an Israeli Lion of Judah, named Yael, heard your story, and she decided that there is no way that Alma Academy for Women's Leadership is not going to start. She decided to give you almost $400,000 of her own private money in order for you to buy a house for the girls to live in. Excuse me, what? What do you say? Thank you, I'll give you a kidney if you ever need one. I actually said both things. That's why I'm not an attorney. And I walked into a family. I saw their house. It was a small house with 5 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms. I said, "Hi people, I know that you've been living here for 30 years. You have 1 week to leave this place." And they left so fast because we accidentally paid too much money. And in August 26th, at 6:30 in the evening, we got the keys to the house. In August 27th, at 7 o'clock in the morning, the first cohort of Alma Pre-Military Academy started. Our girls slept on the kitchen floor like the feminist hero named Cinderella. They painted their own walls, they carried their own beds, and for 6 months, they studied so many things that opened their eyes and opened their hearts and made them grow. They went on hikes all over the country. They created so many things. They became true sisters who would stand up for each other and also kill each other for not doing the dishes. And don't kill your sister, okay? And I think that, to me, the most meaningful part is that on February 2014, and any February since then, the girls stood up on the stage on the graduating ceremony. They didn't stand like that anymore. They stood up like this, like real lionesses. And they knew that they were about to give up the amazing opportunity that they were given to use the next 2 years to sell coffee, make candy, clean weapons, and drive their commanders around. Instead, they became officers and commanders and fighters and social workers and educated. They became the change they wanted to see in the world. And I want to say that, to me, one of the roughest moments after the roughest moments was 3 years later when I decided that we're going to have to leave Ofakim. Ofakim is a small development town. We already doubled the number of girls back then. We had 36 girls a year. And our partner ran against the mayor and lost the elections. Not something you would want to happen to you. And at a certain point, I decided that we're not welcome there anymore. And at that point, I said, you know what? If I'm teaching those girls that you're not supposed to be in a relationship, that you're the only one who wants to be in it, I can't be in a relationship that I'm not welcomed in. Be the change. So I decided to do what I actually secretly always dreamed of and move the Mechinah to Jerusalem. I knocked on the doors of Nir Barkat, the mayor of Jerusalem. Actually, I knocked on his door every year and always got it slammed in my face. But the 4th year, the door was opened. And Nir Barkat said, Jerusalem actually wants you here. We believe in your dreams. But to find a piece of property in Jerusalem is impossible. So good luck with that. Go find a building and then we'll support you. Miraculously, again, I found the women's organization, the biggest Israeli women's organization named Naamat. They gave us a building, a 60-year-old building that was invaded by 5 different organizations illegally. Nut factory, recording studio, soccer team, ultra-Orthodox kindergarten, and a kids' welfare club. And they said, if you manage to get all of those nice people out and bring 500,000 shekels to renovate, it's all yours, honey. So I'm very happy to say that this August we managed to get everybody out, find the money, get the municipality of Jerusalem, match our money in order to not only have a home for Alma Academy for Women's Leadership, but also start a new Women's Leadership Center to use all the tools and knowledge that we got in those 5 years of working with our girls in order to also push older women forward and to also work with younger girls and to also work with women from outside of Israel. And when our girls arrived to this home only a few months ago, what they found is tons of garbage and a very rough place. Would you like to see what they did with it? So, are you okay? Yeah. So now I can't say that it's only them. Of course, it's the contractor who did the most, but they still felt that they're building their home in Jerusalem with their own hands. So I would like to show you what we went through during this summer, and in the end, it's just pictures of our girls. After that, I'll tell you some of their stories, and if you like, you can ask me anything. And I'm Israeli, so I really mean you can ask me anything you'd like. But I'll translate. Before, isn't it beautiful? Judy can relate, huh?
Where in Jerusalem?
Katamonim. Katamonim is not Katamon, but Katamonim. It's one of the roughest neighborhoods in Jerusalem. Revolution begins.
יחסי אהבה זה משחק מלוכלך קצת מציבור שוב למדתי לעמוד לראות בשלווה לא ליפול על התחת אדם צריך שתהיה לו מילה קצת מקום בעולם אהבה לא נשכחת כל אמיתי לתפילה ורגע מושלם כדי לתת ולקחת
Our new home. One of the girls, our beautiful garden. That's their beautiful garden, you know. Yeah. Every group that comes from the United States has to make a small garden with us. These are the offices. That's a new fence we created after a stripper showed up at our doorstep and offered a show. Seriously. These are the room. Every room is named after a woman leader. Beyonce, Malala, Coco Chanel. They chose the women leaders. This is it was the wall of role models, and in the middle there's a mirror saying you. My office, which is the prettiest, of course. The backyard. Now we'll say thank you. Remind me to tell you, it's one of our girls with her tank. So saying toda. Toda is thank you in Hebrew. Thank you. So I see all the pictures and I think we saw enough. Thank you. And I'm wondering if you have any questions, anything you would like me to tell you more about, or are you very tired? Yes.
I have two questions. One is, can you discuss the curriculum?
Yes.
The second question is, you said the Jerusalem site is in the roughest neighborhood. So how do the neighbors react to this group of women who are about to be empowered? I mean, how did the neighborhood treat this?
Okay, so I'll start with the second question. I want to say that it was a decision to be in the roughest neighborhood in Jerusalem. Last year, we already moved to Jerusalem. We rented a place. We didn't have a choice, so we stayed in more of like an upscale neighborhood. It wasn't a good thing, because when the girls in the neighborhood see those girls and they come inside and they ask them, so what are you doing here? What are you training for? What's your goals? It gives them inspiration to dream big themselves. And the girls actually volunteer in the community. They work with the elderly, they work with teenage girls, they work with younger kids. So I want them to be involved, to be really part of a community. And I think that it's really powerful for them to now be the leaders, you know? Now they are the ones working with youth at risk. They are the ones being a role model. They're not those poor girls who people feel sorry for. They are powerful, strong women. And just a short story about that. I always tell it, Judy, I'm sorry you heard it so many times, but I think it touches the point. When we were in Ofakim, it was also a very rough place. In Hanukkah, the girls decided to do a project, like a mitzvah project for the welfare community, and they got a list of 30 families that need help for the holiday. So they said, we're going to walk around supermarkets in the city and ask for them to buy an extra something, food, something in order to put in packages and give the families. They had 2.5 days. So they said, how can we choose between all the families? I mean, Ofakim is a really poor place. The same as the Katamoni, where we are now. And how will we choose who are we going to give the food packages? And 2.5 days later, they had 87 food packages to give around. And that night that we gave the food packages, one of our girls came up to me crying, and I said, what is it? She said, when I was growing up, I was always the one receiving those packages. But now I'm the one giving. I'm the one packing and delivering. That girl was absolutely bright, so smart, so fast, so good with people. In her neighborhood as a girl, they knew it about her, and she became a drug dealer. Mm-hmm. Today she's an officer in the IDF. So she uses her forces to do good. And about the curriculum, the girls actually, as I said, they volunteer in the community twice a week. 1 week out of each month, they're outside in the field. So they can hike in the Negev or hike up north. Just a few weeks ago, we had Survival Week. All the Jewish mothers, watch out. Those girls survived on half a cup of rice and few raisins for each one of them a day. And they managed. And they survived it. And they found out that they're a lot stronger than they believed to be. And 4 girls took a taxi back home. So it's not only successes, but I think that it's what you do when they fall. You can look at that and say, okay, so you took a taxi after the second day of Survival Week. What does it mean to you in your own life? When do you run away from your problems instead of dealing with them? And that's a lesson for life. So I don't think that we have, even if they don't do exactly what we say, and they don't do exactly what we say always, it's okay if they can study, if they can learn something from it. Something more important that they're doing is that they're studying many things. Many of their families come from extreme poverty. That's why we teach them economy, which is really important, because many of those families can only see here and now. People in poverty, in many cases, can only see here and now. Now they need to pay the rent. Now they need to pay for electricity. Now they need to buy food, or else they will not have a place to live. They will not have electricity. They will not have food on the table. So it's hard for them to see 5 years ahead or 10 years ahead. That's why many of the parents in the beginning wouldn't send their daughters. They would say it's a waste of time. I'm giving them full scholarships to participate. But still, they're not working for 6 months. It's a waste of money. And it took time for them to understand that today it's a waste of money, but in 10 years, those girls are going to make 5 times more. And it's going to be worth it, but they can't see for long term. Something else that is very important to us is to teach them about feminism. They have to understand that we live in miraculous times. Miraculous times! Our great-grandmothers could not imagine the reality that we have today, and it's not perfect. But they could not imagine getting married at the age that you choose, to the man you choose, bring as many kids as you choose, not health-wise, but decision-wise, to be able to have your own bank account, to study in the university, to drive. Those were not things that our great-grandmothers had. And I think that it's so important for them to understand that as our great-grandmothers, paved the way for us, they are now paving the ways for the women that are to come. And at that point, I think that this is an issue I have to address. If the American women would not stand up 100 years ago and say, we will vote. No matter what's the prices, we're going to vote. And we're going to raise our voices and raise our hands. If they would not do that, we would not be sitting here right now. That's my belief. So we are all connected. I'm connected to you in my actions. You